That's the doorbell at Jimmy's house. Now, when you come to my house, my doorbell sounds like this.
Hey, welcome to the People's Weekly on People's Radio United. I'm Tim. I'm here with a whole bunch of awesome people today. We have the regular crew, me, Canadian Glenn, Nolan Hack, and Jen Deerenwaters joining us. And we also have our guest, Joy. I'm sorry, how do you want me to introduce you? I didn't even ask.
Ron.
What?
Ron?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So, yeah, we're out here. Glenn, you want to tell them when the View Up Here is going to be back?
View Up Here should be back March 6th, exactly as planned, which is good enough results as far as I'm concerned. It's not later. So that's it, another week.
Okay. And yeah, we have another Music to Riot to. It'll be coming out, I think, next week. The end of next week. And that's about it for right now. So, yeah, you want to jump into the topics right now?
Let's do it.
Okay. I had to find them. All right. With real hate crimes happening on a daily basis, creating a fake hate crime not only hurts victims of actual hate crimes, but emboldens the bigots and racists who are most likely to be the perpetrators of hate crimes. So yeah, this whole thing's going on with this actor that faked a hate crime. It happens really rarely, but I remember a few instances of this happening before, where people fake a hate crime to get, well, one lady did it to get a new car and get money and a bunch of other stuff. But this guy, I don't even know what he thought he was going to gain from doing this. Nolan probably has more insight on this because he knows the actors and the television shows and all that way more than anybody else. What?
I know them all. I know them all. We talk regularly. Every single one. Just name one. Even the dead ones. Me and John Wayne had a seance yesterday.
Oh my
God. No. It's just sad. It's really sad, and it's people are using it as a distraction to take from actual hate crimes, and white folks are using it like, no, see, you guys fake it all the time. It's a rarity. The real hate crimes are much more likely to happen than, Jesse Smollett type of deal. But it's just sad, especially talking about gay people and black people. And gay black people are so oppressed and under so much pressure when they're children, act masculine, what you're doing is a sin, the whole 9 yards. So for someone to actually fake something like this, it's just, like you said, it takes away from actual hate crimes, and especially actually hate crimes against black gay men, people in the LGBTQ community. You look at black trans women, 1 in 2,500 are murdered. So it's a sad distraction, and I don't know if he's suffering from mental health issues or what, or if he doesn't feel like he's getting enough attention as an actor or what have you. But this is not needed. It's absolutely not needed. And I hope he somehow learns from this And I hope us in the black community understand that this is a serious problem. What he said happened to him happens all the time to anybody in the LGBTQ community, and especially in the black community, and I would also say the indigenous community. So,
but Nolan,
yeah,
okay, I'm just, I don't know, this whole mental illness thing, letting them off that easy. I don't.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
I'm just saying. No, I hear that a lot from some people on there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's been in his head.
But why couldn't he? If he's got this name that people know. I never heard of him before, but I know a lot of people watch that show and know who he is. Why didn't he get behind some real victims? You know what I mean? Why didn't he say, "Oh, these people are victims that you never heard of. I'm gonna put my money and energy behind making this something known," instead of faking it and doing this stupid, ridiculous. Man, you don't understand. I mean, you do, but a lot of people don't. Like, look at the threads on this. It's just white supremacists dancing around gleefully. Like,
yeah, that's
everything's a hoax now.
And go ahead.
Okay. So I read in an article today that they're speculating that he did this to try to bolster his career. But speaking to like both your points, Nolan and Tim, about like, supporting actual people who are being victimized of hate crime and like, and just recognizing the reality of hate crimes. So there's actually been a 17% increase in hate crimes in the U.S. since 2016. And that was put out by, it was put out in a public statement made on, I believe it was the 19th. Let me look here.
There's also been a 30%.
It was February 19th. And that was put out by the Q Center, which is the LGBTQIA, 2S Center in Portland, Oregon. And they've been dealing with a huge rise in hate crimes there. Like those who are like queer or who are viewed as being queer have been getting attacked. There were several attacks last week. I see friends of mine who live in Portland putting up posts about trying to fundraise so that queer folks can take, ride shares or cabs or something so that they don't have to walk or take the buses and stuff. And, hate crime is real and it's happening to our queer community, and it's happening at unprecedented rates, in particular for our red, black, and brown, like trans and two-spirit community members. And man, what he did was I don't even understand it. Like, it would never occur to me to do something like that. I'm over here, trying to survive and trying to keep, help keep my community members alive from all the different kinds of hate crimes that we can be victim to. And the thought of like a black gay man making a story up like that is just ridiculous. And yeah, like you said, like he could be, if this was a visibility thing, he could have actually used his platform, like his social capital, to say like, hey, look, there is this rise in hate crimes. This is what's happening to queer community and black community, and use his capital like that for good. It just, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm not in his head. I don't know what he was thinking, what he's been thinking. I mean, I don't know if he's struggling with mental illness, or like you said, Jen, like I said before as well, if he's trying to bolster his career. I mean, who knows? And this really, all the way around, has just become a distraction from real serious issues in the black community and in the LGBT community. There's a source told CBS News that two Nigerian brothers told detectives that Smollett paid them to participate in the attack. Now, a lot of times you hear the word Nigerian, one of the first things that people think of in America is, the Nigerian princes are going to send you some fake email trying to get your money. So we have another negative story out about a black man, and we got two other black men who are Nigerian, and they may have been involved in this. I mean,
they were American. Well, they may have been Nigerian, but I mean they were American citizens.
I'm reading. I'm just reading from CBS News. It says
but the media reported them as Nigerians. I think that was done intentionally because of the scam thing.
Okay. Well, that goes about the point.
Also, real quick, just to go back to what Jen was saying before, they just released a report that there's a 30% rise in hate groups as well as the rise in hate crimes, and I'm sure those coincide for a reason, right?
Well, we talked about on the show in the last couple of weeks about the Nigerian girls and women who are in sex slavery and have been put there the last couple of decades. Now that story has barely been talked about. You're not going to hear about it in the American news cycle. You're talking about 20,000 girls and women. Nigeria just had a mass shooting. Over 60 people were killed this past week. The presidential election had to be delayed. 22 of those people were kids who were killed. Now, these things happened in Belgium or England or, the European country. The American media would be losing its mind. But, we have something like this. Oh, well, let's just say they were straight from Nigeria, and we got this guy Smollett. We told you these gay folks are shifting. You can't trust them. So especially black gay men. Oh my goodness. So you have a distraction created from just an embarrassing and pathetic story that was created by this Smollett dude, and it's just sad. It's absolutely sad. It's not needed. And, you talk about the rise in hate crimes. Major reason for that is Trump. So you have all these MAGA, people, all these MAGA people say, oh, see, we told you guys are whining. It's not that bad for black folks and gay folks. You guys are ridiculous.
I think it's a relief. They're like, whew, one of them actually wasn't one of us terrorizing the community. Like
part of it's pure, yeah.
Because it's so many times. It's like every week. Go ahead, Glenn. Sorry.
Well, I mean, again, I'm outside the U.S. when this kind of thing goes down. Thank God. But the thing I notice about the way it's being countered now that the truth is out, the same thing happens regarding sexual assault. The same thing happens with racially motivated crime, with orientation. They're all common because with the amount of crime that goes on, there's a fake one of everything every so often that gets caught. And it's just that when this happens, just like with sexual assault, I mean, I know things are done different up here, and it's always a super big deal when there's a big rape case going on, and the defense lawyer is able to get something admitted to evidence like prior sexual history or something that has nothing to do with it, but they get it in there. And then right away, all the stereotypes come out. And this is the problem with what this guy did and faking it. He has taken so much from actual victims of these hate crimes. All it takes is one. And, because there's so many people out there that don't know a goddamn thing about it anyway. They're on the 15-second news cycle. But stuff like this is what they remember. They don't remember the people who went to jail for hate crimes. They remember stuff like this. And the media's got a lot to do with that. But this is just such a disastrous thing for this specific cause. Ridiculous. And I just don't understand how he could make the decision that this was the way to go about it, to get eyes on it. He's got eyes, just the wrong eyes. That's it.
I just say the word again. It's sad. It's just sad. And what I've seen, and seeing from the outside, because I'm cisgendered and I'm straight, but what I've seen gay people, trans people, black gay people, black trans people have to go through, either growing up or as an adult, it's heartbreaking. And I can empathize with that being a black person, because what I've had to go through growing up and then also as an adult is heartbreaking. And to distract from that, it's an embarrassment to my race, to be honest with you. We got so many problems that are being inflicted upon us from so many different angles, so many different cities and states and countries. And he pulls this. Just sad.
So this is Joy, everybody. Can you hear me? So he hasn't gone in front of the court to say that to put his plea in, right? That comes like on the 14th, I think. But the reports state that immediately after he made bail, he drove directly to the studio, apologized to all of his castmates. His castmates were like all really mad and everything. So Smollett, the reports are saying that he did this because he wanted more money per episode. He was already making $65,000 per episode. I'm sorry, if I made $65,000 in a year, I'd be pretty freaking happy. But one of the things
can I say something real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you're right. He did make $60,000+ an episode, but they shot, they shoot 18 episodes a season, so that's close to that's over $1 million he's making a year.
Right, exactly. I mean, like I said, if I made just $65,000 a year just for me, that would be like, I'd be pretty freaking amazing and happy with that. But this is the amount of money that he's talking about, and the whole thing with a noose around the neck. I mean, that's pretty disgusting. That's gross. I mean, we have real lynchings that go on now here in so-called United States of America, and not just against black people, but also against Native people. There's a huge KKK and white supremacist movement here in South Dakota. Has been my whole life. Run into it all the time. People forget that the guy that built Mount Rushmore, that blew dynamite into our sacred Black Hills, he was a white supremacist. Anyway, so he's doing all this stuff, the Smollett, and he goes back around, and now he's saying, "Oh, I didn't pay these guys to do this. This is all false and everything." He's backtracking. We also got to remember exactly when this happened. This was on the very tail of what was going on with Uncle Nathan and all the media swirl that happened around Uncle Nathan. All right, with all the Maga hats and everything. I think this guy got something in his head and decided to go ahead and do something to try to bolster his career. Now, we don't know for sure until he goes in there and then all the evidence is poured in. But are we not adding fuel to the fire and part of this media frenzy by continuing talking about this just like we did with Uncle Nathan?
Yeah. I think that people are talking about it, a lot of people from the entertainment point of view, and not the how terrible a person he is point of view. Like someone here on Twitter, John Brown, said, he asked, why are we buying the official police narrative regarding Jussie? And I said, fuck the police, but even a broken clock is right twice a day. But also, the only option, because these two dudes were involved, right? The two quote-unquote Nigerian dudes, the brothers. So, let's say they had some kind of issue with him and they wanted to attack him And let's say they said all that stuff and did everything with the noose and the bleach, and he didn't know anything about it, because that's the only other option, right? Why would he cover for him and say it was white dudes? And you know what I mean? Like, they didn't. There's no way they look like white dudes, and I'm sure they don't sound like white dudes, unless they're really good actors. Maybe they had that white girl, the Wayans brothers, white girl makeup kind of stuff on.
Yeah, they were doing whiteface.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, they're like, it just nothing adds up when you hear the story.
Yeah, I know nothing adds up, but I mean, we still have to allow due process at some point.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's, you know, it's death by Twitter. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of it's just so ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know why anyone would do that. Like I said before, this other lady, she was a professor at a college, and she was a Jewish lady, and she claimed her car was smashed and there were swastikas and death threats written all over it. And these people got together and put all this money and gave her, I don't know, it was like $40,000, bought her a new car aside from that. She was speaking all over the place like a victim. And then it turns out she did it to her own car, and there were witnesses and all kinds of stuff. She went to jail. She had to pay back all this money and everything. It was all screwed up. And I'm like, why would she do that? What kind of idiot? You know what I mean? It just seems...
In Lakota, because I'm Lakota, we have a word that's called wakuza. It means crying around to get attention, and that's what I think these guys are doing. They're wakuza. They're wakuzaing.
And and John's a good friend of mine. He's a very intelligent dude, very caring activist himself. But you look at Smollett's friends, his co-workers, people who know him best. None of them have come out. You go, well, no. See, look, here's this evidence. He's telling the truth. You know, what you're seeing is them go, oh my gosh, why do you do that?
I suspended him for the rest of the season, at least.
He'll probably never be back on, and honestly, he shouldn't be back on.
Well, I'm saying if there was something, you know what I mean? They're not going to go all out if one of their stars is. I mean, they are going to go all out if one of their stars is being falsely accused of something. But it's pretty evident in this case.
I have never watched Empire, but is he one of the main? Isn't it Howard and Henson? P. Henson. Those are the stars. You
never watched Empire?
I have never. I know it's very.
I've never watched Empire, but
I've never watched. I've never come around to watch. I need to. Everyone says it's great.
No, I just can't believe there's a show you haven't watched. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'm just saying. You're saying he's making $65,000 an episode. To my entertainment knowledge, that is not a salary you would pay a star of one of the, on the big networks. Okay, according to IMDb, he's been all 75 episodes. But it's, Cookie Lion, Lucius Lion, Terrence Howard, Charles P. Henson. So I don't know. I haven't seen the show, but
okay. I looked into this, Nolan, because I knew we had the show today. Or normally I wouldn't even care, but yeah, last season he was making $20-something thousand an episode, which came to like $380,000 a year or something. Mm-hmm. And then he got this raise. He's making 3 times what he was making before. I think the problem with it is that these, like they have like tiers of actors on this particular show. So like whoever the mainer, the more main characters than he is, mainer. That's funny. They are making a crap load more money than the other people, like a big difference. You know what I mean? But I think according to my homie, I don't know anything about this dude, but my homie's like, he was the black kid on the Mighty Ducks. I said, which black kid? And he said, there was only one. I was like, oh, okay.
I actually, this tangent, I actually did go to high school with one of the kids that was on the Mighty Ducks. I think he was in like the first or second episode, and he played, like the Texas kid. It's like very like cowboy-like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to high school with him.
There's another movie I haven't seen, Empire and the Mighty Ducks.
Okay, you're not alone because I haven't seen either one of those either. So, yeah.
Thank you. I don't feel so left out right now.
Yeah.
Good tangent.
Only the smart, nerdy ones. We don't fall into
Burn. Damn,
so,
Joy.
Anything else on this, or do you want to move on to the next topic, or does anyone have anything else on this?
I think the next topic can tie into this topic. The next topic we're talking about white terrorism and.
Do you have it in front of you?
I can read it off.
Yeah, I don't have it in front. I have to look it up.
Okay. Another Maga terrorist was caught plotting a terror attack. This time, the terrorist was a U.S. Coast Guard lieutenant. What can be done to stop these Maga terrorists that the U.S. government considers very fine people? That's why I think it could tie into this, because especially if we're talking about made-up crimes.
Yeah, this wasn't a
I know. To finish what I was saying, the people who cry wolf the most are white folks. Okay, whether it's we didn't do anything wrong ever, or you see a lot, especially the social media now, you'll see white folks coming out and saying that I was attacked by these black people, and they put pictures of them allegedly having blood on their face, and we find out that it never happened. You can even go back to during World War II, after World War II. During World War I, after World War I, there is this big propaganda by European countries saying that black soldiers were raping white women, and then they find out no, that's a load of bullshit. And I think they polled about close to 200, or they looked at about 200 cases, and only one or two of them had raped anybody. And if you know anything about the armed forces, rape is a big thing, sadly. Soldiers. But the point being, white people make up a lot of shit about us. And
remember last year, Nolan, or whenever Black Panther the movie was out, white people were online getting beat up in the movie all the time, but there wasn't one actual case of a white person getting beat up by the black people that didn't want them to watch Black Panther.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I mean talk about a hoax. That was all across the internet. All these white people were getting jumped and beaten and thrown out of theaters, and it never happened one time in real life.
I wrote this article recently about the issues of urban missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirits. And the reason I bring this up is that this urban study that was done by Urban Indian Health Institute, they actually found in that law enforcement, so when law enforcement's entering all the data on their cases into their systems, there were several law enforcement agencies that they found that if the officer who was on the scene, whoever's doing the report, doesn't enter a race, then it defaults to white. So then you have all these these crimes against Native, Black, and Brown and Asian people that are not being recorded. And then on the flip side of that, you have the rates of violence against white people being inflated. So it's like on every level, white people are like bolstering their so-called like victimization from folks of color and such.
Well, isn't that a part of their culture?
Well, it is. lies. I mean, you can check science for this. This is, studies showing that white people like to lie. It's a part of their culture. Exactly. I mean,
when you talk to them, it's all. And I'll give you a really good example. We were on the front line at treaty camp at Standing Rock, and this white guy walks up, and he's like wearing overalls and stuff. He may have been like 120 pounds wet because he was really tiny. But he starts talking about oh, I feel so moved, and oh, this hurts me so much. And we started telling him that he had to get out of there. And I called these great big burly security guys and said, get him out of here. And he threw a major fit. But it's all about how they talk and even how they perceive the world. It's all self-centered. And if it's not self-centered, then they will make it self-centered, including victimizing themselves. And I don't know, I can't stand it.
It's the truth, and it's sad that it's the truth. You can even look at how they like to just look at racism. You're being a racist. You're being a reverse racist. This is not a thing. You cannot flip genocide. And for whatever reason, and part of it is to distract from the dual genocide of indigenous and black people, is to hide that and to hide that and say no, it's not really a thing. Let's just make up distractions, which is why this Jesse Smollett thing is so harmful, because it gives them ammo. It adds to that bogus distraction, and again, you can look at science. White people are just known to cry wolf, play the victim. They called Malcolm X a racist. They hated MLK as well, despite his incredible patience and
Nolan,
sympathy for white people he actually had. Yeah,
Nolan. Well, they playing the victim though. They slaughtering and terrorizing stuff. I mean, you know what I mean? Like one of the songs on the Punch a Nazi mix had a little thing. He said, "You're white. What exactly are the great achievements of the white race?" He said, "Slavery, genocide, sitcoms."
There you go.
He goes, "Come on, tell me." But no, yeah, but these people are terrorists right now. Not white people in general, but I mean these neo-Nazi, KKK, MAGAs, the Patriot Prayers, the Proud Boys, Adam Woffin. You got all these hate groups, and they're super dangerous. They caught this guy plotting a terror attack only because why? Because he used the computers on the military base to do it. Who haven't they caught, and what are these people planning?
Well, and U.S. Coast Guard we're talking about here.
Well, we talked about this on many shows, how the FBI even did a report saying that the white nationalists have been infiltrating law enforcement, military, and government and everything else. So it's infested.
Well, when were white nationalists not already in the?
They created it. Who was a giant white nationalist? Exactly.
Yeah, but they're saying I think by saying that they mean extremists, like super extremists, But yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Well, Thomas Jefferson marching how many hundreds of thousands, Jen?
Oh, yeah, exactly. And, I sit here in D.C. and, I'm surrounded by all these monuments to these mass murderers and whatnot. And, oh, my God, it's ridiculous. I mean, I think about how the U.S. military was used against, my nation of people. And it's like, well, of course, the military and law enforcement and stuff are full of white supremacists. Like, it was created on white supremacy,
Yep.
And this was published in Psychological Science, a journal of the Association for Psychological Science. We document that white perceivers actually selected the truth response more than black targets than white targets in a lie detection task, suggesting that they are overcorrecting for their anticipated racial bias. Critically, though, when white perceivers could not easily control their responses, we observed clear evidence of anti-black bias. In other words, white perceivers initially show an impulse to call black people liars, but then overcorrect for this later in the judgment process. Americans and white Americans often struggle to understand and to consider their potential role in creating and enacting prejudice. Some people deny the existence of racial prejudice, while others work hard to avoid expressing anti-black attitudes. And that ties right into the Jussie Smollett thing, because he adds into that myth. You know, it's like, you know, you talk about like black on black crime, or, you know, violence, lateral violence in Africa or something like that. You know, the reasons for this are because of white supremacy and colonization. But you compare this to said colonization, white supremacy, and all that white terror, it's few and far between, and yet we're gonna have a Jussie Smollett here. Here you go, MAGA people. Here you go, white racists, white America in general. Here's some fuel to add to these myths to make it even harder for black people to come out and say, "Look, you're being racist. Stop," or your Flint still doesn't have water. Give us water. You know, it's just.
You're 100% right, but here's the thing. This is the thing that I've noticed. Just take the MAGA people all the way down from the lowest, go Trump MAGA, all the way up to Trump himself. None of them are talking about this Christopher Hassan dude, the dude that was plotting to kill a whole bunch of people. He wanted to kill most people on Earth who weren't white. That's what he said. Of course, he couldn't do it. But he's talking about, this dude was talking about getting diseases and spreading them and messing with food supplies. And
reminds me of those smallpox blankets that
like crazy stuff. And then slaughtering people with a hit list. Angela Davis is on the hit list. It's insane, man. This dude.
It's not funny. Well, okay, it's a little funny. Angela Davis is already on. Has already been on an FBI hit list.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying. The thing about it is,
he's doing what he's programmed to do. Honestly, if we're being completely honest, he's doing what this country and this society is programmed.
Yeah, but here's the point I was making in a terribly boring roundabout way, is that none of these MAGA people are talking about this. But they're talking about the real threat. The thing they perceive as a real threat, which is this actor. Because if he didn't do that, then so far pretty much everything, all these terror attacks and everything is on them. Trump didn't even speak on this guy. This guy was caught trying to commit many acts of terror and assassinations on all kinds of American citizens. Trump didn't mention it one time as of the last I've seen earlier today, just before the show. None of these MAGA people are saying we denounce this or anything, because that guy's doing their bidding. And now this Smollett guy is doing their bidding. That's why they're going crazy on this, because they got one dude here ready to kill all these dirty non-white people, quote unquote, and then you have all the rapists and murderers, as they say, and then you have this other guy who's lying, making it seem like, or opening the door for them to say, well, what next is a hoax? It's all hoaxes. I've even seen a couple of them claiming that this terrorist was a hoax as well. Like they're making this up to make Trump look bad or something.
Well, you talked about how Trump hasn't said anything, and I mean, he happens to be the president right now. look at any president, senators, etc. Then they rarely ever talk about this. How white people are always almost always the ones who commit mass shootings. They're the world leaders in terrorism, because they don't come out and say that, because they're putting troops in Afghanistan to kill more people of color. They're putting more troops at the border, more border patrol officers to harm, rape, and even kill indigenous people. This is what America is. This is what America always has been. This is what, for being completely honest, this is what white society has been since 1444, when the Portuguese first took black slaves from Africa. So it's just, again, another sad truth, but that's what needs to be recognized here. Whether you're talking about, I think it was in Kansas or somewhere in the Midwest, this white dude tried to bomb a mosque, and he thankfully went to prison, but that barely got talked about. It's been a few years now since the Charleston 9 shooting, yet take another 3, let's go in the future 3 more years, more people are going to be talking about Jesse Smollett than, the 9 victims who were killed by that bastard who got in the death penalty. And that's, that's what it always is. But when the Las Vegas shooting happened, that's the white media, these bigots, whether it's Rachel Maddow or Tucker Carlson, saying it's the largest mass killing in U.S. history. Yeah, because Native people never existed here. What the hell are you talking about? So, that type of erasure and distraction fits right in with the American narrative. And he was doing exactly what he was trained to do, this Coast Guard officer.
Well, I just want to say that military involves killing people and not really giving 2 fucks about it. So, they're never going to admit it, but there's an active part of military leadership that looks for people like these. And if you think they're going to go out of their way to educate them to differentiate, no, they're not going to. And these people have always been in militaries. They always will be. They've always been on police forces. They always will be, because they're built for that job. And there ain't going to be a lot of control because, history shows that when a superior tells a underling to settle down, sometimes it's that superior who ends up the next one dead. So, this is the way of doing business. It's just that for it to come out now, like if this would have came out 10 years ago even, this would have been a much bigger deal than it is now. It's almost a non-deal now. But, the question is, what are you going to do to get these people out? It's top down. Right?
Well,
it's like it's like anything else. It's like it goes from the meter maids shaking somebody down so they don't get another ticket, up to the patrol officer that, gives people moonlight caravans out of town, up to the detective who covers up a murder. It just, it's never going to stop because there's nobody at the top who wants it to stop, or who gives a shit for it to stop.
When they want it to continue. I think that point needs to be made. We're talking, we have the election and very soon enough, at least. You having a bunch of capitalists, like every time, who defend war, who fund the police, who fund our dual genocide or double genocide. So this is what they want. I heard, was it Liz Warren came out with some bogus, hollow gesture yesterday, saying, I support black people having reparations, and I looked deeper into it. It looks like she just meant fixing the housing laws, the unjust, racist housing laws, and that's our reparations. How would you fix the laws that are racist and give us reparations? That doesn't count as reparations to fix laws. And of course, you didn't even mention indigenous people, which is weird because he says he's one. So these are the people we're dealing with, and Joy mentioned Jefferson. Jen lives in D.C. The name of it is Washington, D.C., so you're honoring America's Hitler and George Washington, who Hitler copied his damn Holocaust off of, and also Christopher Columbus, who started this whole thing against Native people. And that's the point that has to be made here, is that this is normal. And this Coast Guard officer was doing exactly what he was trained to do, just like Dick Cheney and W dropping bombs and having troops shoot Arab people, and just like Obama dropping drones to kill Arab kids. This has been a cycle for a long, long time.
We know that. The thing about it is, we're supposed to be a civilized society, and we're supposed to not put up with stuff like this. As far as the people go, the politicians are the ones that let it slide, because they have ulterior motives. They train this guy to kill. He's killing he wanted to kill. He wanted to do what they wanted to do, just for the wrong, quote unquote, the wrong side. But the thing I'm wondering is, what do you think it would have been like if a couple days ago this story broke, and instead of a white Coast Guard, it was an Arab dude?
Oh my God, that was.
I would have broke loose.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it would have been like a whole nother. The news. It would have been like a whole nother story. It would have been the biggest thing you would have seen. Trump would have been talking about it nonstop. Everyone would. I just truly believe that's the case.
Yeah, but when we're talking about Maga, so in the airport, for example. I don't know if you've ever seen this. Have you ever seen two people wearing MAGA hats and they see each other like across the airplane or across the airport? Have you ever seen that, and how they like nod at each other and like start shaking each other's hands and, yeah, man, America's great. We're going to make America beautiful again. It's going to be awesome. And I've seen, and this is no lie, I've seen an Asian guy wearing a MAGA hat. I've seen a black man wearing a MAGA hat. And I have seen a white man wearing a MAGA hat. All the same airplane right next to me, all talking about how they're going to make America great again.
Yeah, I had an argument.
It's about a special little club. It's about a special club where they can make themselves feel good about themselves and get away with literally murder. And I don't even remember where I was flying to when that happened, but it was like right next to me, and I was like going, all I need are white hoods, and it don't matter what color skin they are, they all be sounding exactly the same.
Yeah,
they're Klansmen with the hoods off.
Well,
I heard a Native woman say this once, and I'm not going to so much disagree, but I still haven't figured this out one way or another. If I remember Twitter offhand, it's at Sydney Raines. She's a brilliant activist, and she said Obama is a white supremacist. Now, as far as the terminology goes, technically, I guess he's not, because he's not white. But as far as the actions go, he is a damn white supremacist.
He's a half white supremacist. Then.
Yeah, there you go.
He's a breed.
But look at you talk about people of color with MAGA hats. It's similar to people of color who say I'm a proud liberal and I did we ride this blue wave to freedom and all this. And you got two black people running for president. One of them has some sick, twisted pleasure in locking up black folks. That's Kamala Harris. The other one is a damn child rape and slavery apologist, and Cory Booker, and he's a giant Jefferson fan, which is why I say he's a child rape and slavery apologist. Huge Thomas Jefferson fan. So, if you're talking about people of color, they want to join that club. They want to join the white club. It's like with O.J. Simpson. He said, "I'm not black. I'm O.J." Because if you try to take yourself out of, if you're black, you try to take yourself out of the black community and out of the black struggle, then you can try to convince yourself, no, I'm not, color doesn't exist, and we're just, kumbaya and everything's fine. And then white people, they want to just go, look, let's just forget all this bad stuff that we've done, and let alone we're adding to it by being silent. But let's forget all about that. Let's just move on without apologizing or stopping and act like everything's okay. And that's what, to your point, is so poignant. They want to be a part of this club, and they want to just be happy-go-lucky, and everything's fine. And
it's like even the poorest white person can be part of this club and feel special. I mean, that's a huge part of it. It's a huge part of saying that I can be part of this club where I can be special, and I can be above. I can have this. I can rise above these other people.
Yeah, they target the poorest and most uneducated white people. That's their target audience.
If you listen to them talk, that's exactly what they sound like.
We only see them here if there's a protest. Generally, like people don't usually go around the streets in those hats in California. But when there's a protest, they're armed. They're over there being violent. They're standing next to neo-Nazis. And I have a video where I videotape.
Right to South Dakota. Come to South Dakota and North Dakota.
Yeah, but I had a videotape. I shot a video of one, this Mexican dude with a Maga hat. And he was talking. I was like, man, you're standing next to literal Nazis, NSM Nazis with swastikas. And he's like, they have some good points. You should try listening to them sometimes. I'm like, you're a Mexican dude. You're telling me Nazis have good points. That's how crazy these people are. MAGA, Trump. Nazis have some good points. Just listen to them sometimes.
I'm going to say something that might make some of my own people angry, but fuck it, whatever. When I listen to this, I think part of it, like my people, Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, we are pretty damn assimilated. I'm not going to lie. We are very assimilated into white culture. That doesn't mean that we're all like that and that people don't speak our languages and do our ceremonies and such. But as an indigenous nation, we are very assimilated. And, as I've been digging deeper into, my people's history and stuff, I read, it was by Theda Purdue, who's a Cherokee academic and scholar and published writer and all that. And she wrote about how part of the reason this assimilation started for my people was in the mindset that if we just acted like white people, then they wouldn't take our lands. And so, it's different. But when I see people who are, oppressed because of their ethnicity, who are taking part in all this white supremacist nonsense, I just, I'm kind of like, well, what's going on here? Are you thinking that if you play along, they won't kill you too? Is that it? Is it that you aren't interested in justice and revolution and you just want to get what the white man has? What's going on here? And just thinking about that, I can't help but think about my people. And, it's like assimilation is not going to save your life. It's not. It never has. It never will. And I don't know. I don't get it. And then, just an earlier point that I didn't have a chance to mention, but, I grew up in Oklahoma and Texas. And, I think when I think about white military trained cis Christian men doing acts of terrorists, one of the first things that comes to mind is Timothy McVeigh and the Oklahoma City bombing. Yep. like, I mean, I was a teenager, so I don't remember it super clearly, but I do remember there was a lot of talk of, oh, this could be a terrorist action, da da da. And then when they realized it was a white vet, then it went from being an act of terrorism to just Timothy McVeigh, doing this awful thing, and oh, he must have mental illness.
A bomber,
and it's amazing.
Not a terrorist.
Yeah, exactly. It was like the story switched so quickly the moment they realized it was a white vet, you know?
And the white vet, another thing white society just looks the other way on. One, we're not going to protect our veterans when they come home, let alone when they're there, fighting. But then two, we're going to just completely forget the fact that, all that war, especially war that's not needed. It's not like World War II. You're actually fighting. America hasn't had soldiers fighting for our freedom since World War II. That all that war, all that carnage messes with your mind. So if you don't get mental health at the time, let alone after the fact, some stuff like this is going to happen. And Jen, you made the point about, and then look, my people do the same damn thing. Asians do the same damn thing. Try to be white so you be safe. And Stokely Carmichael Kwame Ture said white people came to Africa, had the Bible, we had the land. And they left, we had the Bible, and then they had the land. There's no reason why we should be practicing white Christianity, but let alone, if we're going all the way, let alone Islam as far as general groups all over the continent, let alone speaking Portuguese, Arabic, French, and English. All these things are because we were invaded and enslaved and killed and forced to assimilate. And, part of it is because we're trying to be safe. If we assimilate, like you said, Jen, then we'll be okay. And then part of it is just absolute brainwashing. I remember when I was a kid, I thought my hair was ugly. I thought my nose was ugly. I didn't know what to make of my skin because I wasn't, quote unquote, black enough, but I sure as hell wasn't white. And I thought I was less than just because I was black, let alone mixed and black and half white and black. And this is a sad truth. That's my word of the day, folks. Sad. It's a sad truth that we try to be white because sometimes we don't know any better. And you look at the Maga hats or the blue wave riders, and I'm not defending or propping up either of the two major parties, but you look at the right, and they're committing or staying silent on very violent and out in daylight acts of white terrorism. And then you look at the left, and they're committing very covert, devious acts of oppression and genocide. Something like, if you're talking domestically, something like the crime bill, or something like the Supreme Court with giving cops license to shoot first and ask questions later. The last president funding police more than any other, giving them more money than any other president in history. Sometimes those two things, the covert racism and the overt racism, overlap. You have a Democratic president, a Democratic cabinet turn Libya into a slave state. And the president was black, so a lot of us would rather be white or pretend we're white or act white. And I don't mean talking white or anything like that. I mean acting white, throwing away, one, our original values, two, being accepting of their tainted and toxic values, such as homophobia, transphobia, classism, sexism. These are all things rampant in the black community. Even your rappers, they talk about flashing their cash and how, if you ain't got money, you ain't worth shit. All that nonsense. So assimilation is a very, very dangerous game that we continue to play, and we have to stop it and understand what we used to be as our two people in Africa and these two continents, North and South America.
Well, people ready to follow up there, I see.
Yeah, that was either a really bad really bad take, or it was so good it just made people drop their jaws.
Or the more likely cause, technically related, people just weren't ready to take over.
So he's blamed the FBI on that one. It's cutting microphones, taking away voices. Fuck Boys International.
No, I think we can go from the second one right into the third one here. And the third topic outlined to us was police are more militarized than ever. They're murdering and brutalizing people on a daily basis. They're getting away with heinous crimes and not even being charged. What can be done to end this continuous reign of terror by police in cities across the United States? Well, I don't see how that's any different from what we just talked about the military. Every time, that's the other thing that nobody really mentioned. Every time somebody like this lieutenant in the Coast Guard turns up, it's all on him. How did this happen? How did this man get like this? Within our military, yeah, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
What people fail to understand is the armed services and the police aren't like some desk job. It's not a cubicle job. These people are watched, evaluated, recruited or discouraged for different parts of the service that they're in throughout their entire careers. There's no way that people like this lieutenant become that way without it being known inside. And it's the same damn thing with the cops. These murderers on the police departments aren't hiding. They're not pulling one over on management, quote unquote. It just doesn't work like that. But media never talks about that. It's always about the individual member. And that's a huge scam. What can be done to end this? Well, how many times have we said it before on the show? Things are working exactly as they're designed.
You got to abolish the cops. It's that simple. Like you said, it's tainted from the inside because it was always tainted. Again, another thing that white society will not admit, they don't want to talk about. Like when Colin Kaepernick even posted on Twitter, slave patrols, the badge they used to have, the original police in this country. That's how, and also the quote unquote Indian patrols. The police were invented in this country to keep black people enslaved and kill as many native people as humanly possible and take as much land as humanly possible. And these, again, this double genocide is still being committed by the police, just like it is the rest of the government. And whether, you're talking about Border Patrol, ICE, you're talking about all these cops all over the country killing us every single day, locking us in jail, modern slavery. Nobody wants to admit that. The reason why, and to add to your point, Glenn, the reason why people don't want to call the police departments, actually call the police departments out, is because that would be admitting the truth that, oh, wait, the whole thing's tainted. And it is working like it's supposed to. These are the modern slave and quote-unquote Indian patrols. They're doing exactly what they're told. These people have freaking racist arrest quotas. Police officers are fired for literally not killing black people. And yet there's some debate. Well, you say all cops. Yes, I mean all cops. The cops should be out of here. No more police. There wasn't any police before white people got here. Native people did a damn fine job of keeping the peace on this land, and they didn't have anything like the police that we know in the United States. And until that is admitted by the media and the majority, this is what we're going to be stuck with. We can't have politicians, and this goes to the whole point of of assimilating. You can't have politicians having your entire platform or your main promise on your platform being abolish ICE. I'm talking about AOC. Abolish ICE, and then their first day in office, you fund ICE. So there's an absolute double talk, that ridiculous hiding of the truth, running away from what needs to be done to assimilate. I mean, if someone actually, it's not possible under the two-party system in this country, but for the sake of argument, if someone of actual moral fiber got a seat in Congress and won an election and tried to abolish ICE, they would be killed or impeached or blackballed, and they'd have to sit in a corner in Congress eating their lunch alone every damn day. So the police, they need to, it's just that simple. They need to go. They need to be abolished.
Oh, yeah. I just want to add fast, you talk about AOC saying defund ICE and then voting for it. Well, I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, even up here, it doesn't matter what party you're in. If you're in government and you vote against the government, you're most likely thrown out of caucus.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Nobody even wants to know why you did it. You did it, beat it. That's just the way it is.
So something that I've been thinking a lot about just over the last couple of years, but in particular this last year, is like, what do we do as, not only just, how do we get rid of the cops? How do we stop the system? But like, what do we replace it with? And that's been difficult. Like, how do, there's so many times when the cops are who's going to be called, or that's who often has to be called. I mean, thinking about, just the rape case that I am going through, like, there was no one for me to call other than the cops to try to get that man out of my home. I didn't want to deal with the police. I didn't want to deal with the state, but like, that's what I had to do. So like, we have to have a response to that. And then, I was a bystander in a shooting on Monday. Thankfully, I'm okay. Somebody did get shot though. And I think that they're alive, but probably not well. Anyway, the cops got called, of course, because to get an ambulance, you have to, the cops are going to be sent. So, it's like, what do we do? Like, what's the answer? And, when I was sitting and talking with one of the police and giving my statement, he said he's from DC, grew up here. He's been a DC cop for, I think it was like 30 years. And he's retiring in a couple months. And he said, he's like, back in the 80s when it started to become more sort of widespread public consciousness about police brutality, and he may have even mentioned like NWA in their music. You know, he said, like, I decided to become a cop in the hopes of making things better. So, like, what do you even say to people that they're in the role of this really awful position, but they're there because they think they can genuinely do better? It's just, for me, it's just brought up so many questions of, like, you know, what do we do as alternatives? Like, how do we handle this?
The cops that are there now, a lot of them are war veterans, or they were militarily washed out and couldn't get into the military. And the police in a lot of metropolitan areas and other, their standards, they've lowered their standards from, say, when the guy that you're talking about in the 80s joining the police. So they've lowered their standards. You got guys in there that are either PTSD or they washed out of the military. They couldn't make it in the military. And they love guns, and it's all part of this. When you're with them, it's all this big old machoism crap bullshit. I mean, literally, like, women be behind in the kitchen and all this other bullshit. I mean, it's really awful stuff. And like here in South Dakota, are a lot of in Indian country, you have either Bureau of Indian Affairs cops, BIA cops, who are federal agents, or you have, like, what my tribe has, which is tribal cops, and some of the detectives have our 638 contract and whatnot. So they're federal officers. So, but the tribal cops aren't federal officers. So, like, up at Standing Rock, the BIA cops, they're evil, they're mean, they're horrible. Even now, they target everybody. Whereas the tribal cops here, honestly, they're lazy as hell. And you're going to be lucky if they're going to get to your house when you make a call, like maybe in 2 hours. And that's in Eagle Butte, where they get dispatched from. You know, there's like 5 officers that have to cover an area the size of Connecticut. And usually there's only 2 or 3 that are on call. So, you know, so there's really a lack of resources. But if we went back traditionally, like we tried to do at Ocheti Shakoli up at Standing Rock, and tried to initiate, like, the Akichita societies and the Kit Fox societies, the other societies that we used as our police state, people could not handle what we did. Because our way, traditional way, is if somebody did some really bad shit, you know what? You could use it. You could lose a hand. You could lose your nose. You could lose your braids. You could be kicked out and told never come back and don't even try to come have any contact with us. And then a runner would go out to our allies, Mandan, Hidatsa, Rikara, the Cheyenne, and whatever, and that person would not be welcomed into anywhere. So when we tried to implement some of that stuff, our own people, and especially, oh man, did we ever get white whiners when we tried to implement this. You can't do that to us, and that's not constitutional. And these are from people who came up to support us. So I don't think America, or so-called Canada, is ready for what it would actually take to police yourself.
I wasn't aware that the Constitution applied to indigenous traditional methods.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Exactly.
And that was so hilarious about it. Listening to these non-indigenous folk crying around, you can't do this. That's violating my constitutional rights. And you're sitting on unceded treaty territory in the middle of Ocheti Shakoli camp. Hello? It was hilarious. And these are from so-called, you know, it was funny. The funniest one was the guy all in dreadlocks, white guy, and crying around about it. I was just looking at him like, yeah, right, shut up.
I started an ongoing list. It's just kind of informal, but just of the nonsense I'd overhear, our white so-called allies say when I was out there. It was ridiculous. People complaining that the camp wasn't vegan, that they couldn't smoke weed, people talking about it as a cool place to chill. I mean, it was absurd. Like all those white tears flowing out there. So I'm sadly not surprised by what you're telling me, Joy.
Well, and you hit the nail on the head, Joy. To Jen's question of what do we replace the police with, or what? Well, it's community policing, which is what was done in most native societies before white people, and the same in Africa. And you look at, I'll give you two examples. You look at the city of Mexico, Sharon. It's governed by women. They drove the politicians out. They drove the police out. And it's self-policed. And the crime rates have plummeted. Violent crime has plummeted down there. And you actually see a harmonious society there, which is what you had before white people got here. You can also...
I was going to say, it would never work if you don't get rid of the capitalism first.
Well, that's what they drove out the politicians.
Well, I'm saying in this country,
it's a capitalist state, and in that city, they said, no, we don't get all you out of here. We're doing this ourselves. And Joey spoke to people like at checkpoints and whatnot. That in Sharon, they have people stationed at checkpoints to make sure that nobody's bringing in any nonsense. And you look at Rwanda, 60% of the government are women. So I think one point that needs to be made, well, there need to be more women leading societies. Because that's something both of our people had before. And you're talking about a third, almost 2/3 of a country that was absolutely ravaged by genocide. And they have, in the last 20 years in Rwanda, the life expectancy has doubled. They've built a near universal healthcare system at 90%, financed by taxes, and also voluntary premiums. So, and they have an income scale which helps with those putting together those voluntary premiums to fund. We're talking about free healthcare, and Rwanda, was completely ravaged by one of the worst genocides this world has ever seen. And so has Mexico. You're talking about Sharon. I hope I'm getting the pronunciation right. But that's what needs to happen. We need to go back to our old ways of doing things.
That's what I was saying. This country, this so-called America, is not ready for that. They live high off the hog. They've never had to experience anything that's truly uncomfortable or life-threatening in their own yards. They've never had to experience, for most Americans, not indigenous people and not our Black relatives, but most Americans have never had to face genocide. They've never had to face the thought that their child could be shot in front of their face. So they've never had to experience the incredible loss of the male population, where the women have had no choice but to say, hey, this is what happened before in our history, and we're going to step up and take care of our families now. And that's what happened in Rwanda. They said, this is what happened before. Things aren't going to get better unless we as women take control and start doing shit that needs to be done, because our children need to be fed, our children need water, our children need clean health care, and our children need education. So that's what happened there. And the so-called America isn't ready for that. They're not ready. That's what I was saying. I mean, even at, like Ocheti Shakoi, they weren't ready. Even our own people weren't ready for that, because we were training and teaching our own people what it meant to have a traditional society again. And honestly, they all wanted to run up to Facebook Kill and get online. That was more fun.
I listening to this, going back to like that assimilation that I talked about, that my own ancestors, some of them went through. Not that I'm not also assimilated in a lot of ways. But one of the things that happened is that the Cherokees, the Sloggies, we were matrilineal and matriarchal. A lot of indigenous nations and, in the colonized U.S. and Canada and so forth were, not all. But so part of that assimilation process for them meant creating a government system that was very similar to the U.S. government. And in doing that, that meant that they took a great amount of the control out of the hands of our women and our two-spirit ancestors. So like any policing that occurred wasn't policing the way we think of it in the U.S., and it happened within the clan. So it wasn't just within, the nation of Cherokee people. It was clan related. And so people within inside the clans would handle any kind of disputes, crime, whatever it was. But clan is also passed down through the mother, and children and their husband, like the husbands, would all move in to the women's family. They moved into the women's clan. And so, how are you going to assimilate into a white government, and especially at that time period, and hold on to your ancestral ways of, the importance of the clan, and, dealing with these issues within the clan, when building this government means that you have to basically completely eradicate all women in any form of leadership or any form of community participation that is outside of, this sort of white patriarchal ideal of acceptable behavior for women. So it's, yeah, I got off on a little bit of a ramble, but there you go. That's what I've got.
Yeah, and that's the reality of it, because even Lakota culture, everything in the house or the teepee belongs to the woman, and the men would move in with the women into the women's family. So everything in my house belongs to me. So how does that? That is so outside of a so-called American patriarchal history of thinking of what ownership means and property. And, that. But at the same time, in Lakota culture, we didn't, everybody thinks, oh, they had council. No, we had many different types of council. We had a war council, yeah. But we also had education council. We also had social justice council. We also had arts and humanities councils. So there was different councils for different things. And, here in so-called United States, everything is linear. It's like who's above you and who's below you. And that's not the things were.
Yep.
Well, I think you said America's not ready for it, and they're not. Obviously it's different in Rwanda because it's it's majority black. Obviously, Rwanda is basically all black, but even in Latin America, you have a lot of white folks in control, and also governments outside of Mexico controlling it, but. Community education is key to get to that point of actually doing what the women in the city of Mexico and also the country of Rwanda have done, and flipping things back to the way that they were, and actually having a successful, prosperous, fair society, and divesting from whiteness, which is imperative for us to get out of this. But educating our own people about our old ways and what if all the lies that have been told to us by white culture and white people, and the history of what we've actually been through. And when I first got into activism and started to realize, like, okay, my voice, I can actually relay some information. It was for everybody, white folks included. Then I started to realize there's no point in talking to white people. When I make a tweet, if I'm called to give a speech, it's not for white people. It's for people of color. Now, if a white person hears it or sees a tweet or whatever and goes, "Okay, yeah, I'm with that. I understand. I'll fight for you people." That's great. But the group, there's no use. Even MLK, Mr. Patient, realized that. He said, "I feel we're integrating into a burning house." He's talking about America and white America. So we need to educate ourselves on what we need to do and our old ways, which were very successful, which white folks were actually envious of us, what our old ways were actually able to produce. So that's very key for us to get out of this, because there's more white people in this country still than anybody else, and white people are in control. So we got to educate ourselves. And I think you're talking, Standing Rock talks about a little bit off and on during the show, and I think we should probably get to that topic now.
Tim.
Oh, were you on? I thought you guys were already on Standing Rock because you were mentioning stuff. I had to take Olive outside at one point, so I muted, and I think I just thought you went to Standing Rock. But you were talking about the police. That's what it was. Okay. I'm trying to
followed the script. We followed the script to the letter.
Can you read that, Nolan? Because I got to look it up.
No problem.
Discombobulated.
It's all right.
You threw me off. I thought we were on Standing Rock.
No problem. Talking about the 2-year anniversary of the Standing Rock camps being raided. And looking at that, staying with the theme of militarized police brutalizing citizens to protect corporate interests, we remember the atrocities that took place to the Native people at Standing Rock 2 years ago today. That started 2 years ago today. And I'll defer to Jen and Joy for this.
Yeah, and I'm going to mostly defer to Joy since, Dakota Access Pipeline directly impacts her lands and people, and she spent quite a bit of time up there. So, yeah.
Yeah, from day one till we got evicted.
Yeah, so, and what date did the camps go up there? It was April 2016, I know that.
April 1st, 2016.
April 1st. All right.
In the snow. It was cold.
Oh, God. So, I know today there's a walk happening. Last I heard, there were 30 people, and it's to, commemorate the camps at Standing Rock. Joy, have you heard anything from our relatives out there doing that?
So it's what happened with the walk comes out of Uncle Nathan. So he had a dream. He told me about it. We were down in Nebraska at a bold event with planting the sacred pumpkin corn at Art and on Helen Pandrup's house space. And Nathan was telling me about it, and he was saying that he had this dream after he left Standing Rock that he would go back for 4 years and he would do this healing walk because there was so much animosity between Morton County and us, Standing Rock and Cheyenne River, just indigenous people. So he talked to LaDonna about it, and she's like, yeah, sure, cool. Anyway, so this is like, year 2. and he invited all the water protectors that are around to go up and walk. And so they started at the Cannonball Rec Center this morning, and they're walking, and they'll walk as far as they can today, and then they'll jump in cars or whatever to get back to the casino or wherever they're staying, and then they'll all jump in a bunch of cars and go to where they stopped for tonight, and then tomorrow morning they'll start there and they'll walk until they get to outside Mandan, and yeah. So I haven't heard how bad or good the police have been this time. Last year they were watching them very warily. They watched us constantly last year. It was pretty bad. But hopefully that the police aren't harassing them too much this year. I hope and I pray. Because it's snowing and it's it's about like it was this day 2 years ago. It was snowing, and 2 years ago, some of the tarpies and things were lit on fire and snowing and stuff. So I'm sure it's going to bring back a lot of memories for people.
Yeah. How are you dealing with it all?
Not too good.
Yeah.
I had written a quote, and I didn't mean for it to be so long. I mean, usually when I write a quote, it's usually a paragraph and a half.
No, it was great, and I'm going to share it right now.
Okay, go ahead. You read it because I can't. You do.
Oh
it.
no, I'm sorry. I just meant I was going to post it on social media, but I can read it if you want. But it's your words, so
I can't read it because I'll break down crying.
Okay. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, you can read it.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me just get it pulled up. Oh my God, there's so much stuff on my computer. Where is it?
Any good nerd has 1,000 tabs open on their computer.
Oh, it's so bad. It's just so bad. And when you go to reopen your internet browser and you freak out and think you lost everything.
Restore open tab. Oh, thank goodness.
Yes. Okay. All right. I got it. It's coming up here. So this wasn't mentioned earlier, but I have launched. I'm trying to get Christian to go from just a Facebook page up to a eventually becoming a 501c3. So we're an international Indigenous multimedia collective working to center the voices of Indigenous media makers around the world. And so Joy is one of our board members. And for today and tomorrow to commemorate this anniversary of the raids and the forced removals, I asked some folks to give me some quotes. And so Joy sent me this, and I posted it earlier on our Facebook page, which is called Crushing Colonialism. It's at ircc.resist. So here it is. And it made me cry when I read this. So 2 years ago, militarized police descended into Osheti Shokoe camp. It was surreal to watch as they goose-stepped in lines to overtake the last few water protectors who stayed in camp to clean, protect, and make their own personal standard for the water and what had become home to many of us. It was heart-wrenching, and as some structures went up in flames, others bulldozed to the ground, and people arrested holding pipe ceremony or praying. It was all non-lethal armory. It was not all non-lethal armory. Don't believe the propaganda. And God, my computer just died on me. Oh, I'm so sorry, y'all. Let me pull it up on Facebook on my phone. Okay. I can do this. Oh.
We can just blame that on that.
We're all in suspense.
Okay, there we go. All right. So it was heart-wrenching. And as some structures went up in flames, others bulldozed to the ground, and people arrested holding pipe ceremony or praying. It was not all non-lethal armory. Don't believe the propaganda. As the Bureau of Indians, U.S. Forestry, and Border Patrol took their place, water protectors faced real guns, real threats to our lives. The federal cops were not as patient as Martin County, and that says a lot because Martin County in the state of North Dakota was out for any excuse to open fire. It's been 2 years. The first year was raw on so many levels. Heartache and trying to get back to a normal life where anything normal felt unreal and abnormal. Where that first sound of a helicopter overhead and an automatic middle finger went up. Or the sound of fireworks gave me the sweats and chills. Where loud voices over an intercom had you steeling your nerves for the next attack that didn't come. Those moments were real, and we slowly got a little more used to that. Sometimes. Seeing Ochedi Chokwe camp for the first time made every cell in your body want to jump the fence and reclaim your ground. You can still hear the sounds on the wind, the drumming, singing, the murmur of voices carried on the wind. Leave tobacco and a prayer. We will be back. I promise someday we will be back. Sisters call you to come join the healing, to pray, to sing, to do something to help our family who are hurting and tearing at each other because they don't or can't go after the evildoers. Infighting is rampant, and we fear being fueled by the same ones who marched into camp or infiltrated our lives. It's true. We have to fight this, and healing ourselves will help our family. We invite them to join us. It's 2 years now, and everything the Spirit said would happen has happened. The cry of Minnie Wachoni has spread around the world. That doesn't mean there isn't much work to be done. There is. We can't close our eyes and unlearn what we have awakened to the world. Water fights to save our children, to stop unjust governments. It was all there before, but now we know how to fight. Now we know it's connected, and my fight and your fight are connected. And as we go into these battles, other lessons are learned. Truly transformative lessons are learned. Unconscious aspects of social engineering are being challenged. White privilege, white tears, colonization, patriarchy, ableism, and what makes a good ally are all coming to light. If we can challenge these things in movements, then we can challenge them elsewhere, and the struggle is easier to fight. It's work, it's hard, it is so worth doing. We were told we would wake the giant. We did. And that's what Joy wrote and what we shared on the Crushing Colonialism Facebook page today. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's beautiful, Joy.
See, even just hearing it's making me cry.
Yeah. Well, tears can be healing. Like, we have to have that as people that have faced so much, violence, and we need to have that time to cry.
But it's true. We were told that we would wake the giant, and we did. I mean, there was so many things that happened at the camps, and it's not. Yeah, we faced intense, militarized police. Where the veterans that came, said that it truly felt like they were back in Afghanistan, and they did things to us that are not documented, like the waking up in the morning and everything covered with a yellow dust, waking up one morning and everything covered with a gray dust, and this is the middle of winter. And I went to my doctor, and we did a sputum test, like a spit test, and they found pumice in my lungs. Pumice is lava rock. That's like akin to breathing in asbestos. So I have COPD now, thanks to Dakota Access Pipeline, thanks to Kelsey Warren and the state of North Dakota, because that's what I breathed in was the pumice.
Was that from the smoke?
No, pumice. It was gray dust. They went over the camp at night. It was about 2:00 in the morning. I went outside because I was watching the guys with the snowmobiles chasing Morton County. and they dropped this dust on us, and I got sick later. And so when I spit into the sputum test, they found pumice in my lungs. So that's like that's lava rock, and that's documented in my medical record. And I'm not the only one. So there's several of us who have developed COPD because of that. And so that's something that has definitely going to have an effect on my life and my lifespan. But there were other things that happened. There was the ricin poisoning. Now, other people were saying, "Oh, I got this poison. I got this poison." No, they didn't. Only those of us who actually handled the dead buffalo got that poisoning, and I was one of the ones that did that. So I had that and that's documented in my medical records too. But there was other things that happened at the camp, amazing things that happened at camp. I mean, I can't even go into all the truly amazing things. You there?
Yeah, we're just listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just listening. We're captivated.
You can't go into all the amazing things that happen. Like, we would. You didn't have to worry about medical stuff. You could choose, like, because we had Cuban doctors there that came from Cuba, so you could choose like Western medicine if you wanted to, or you could choose all this natural other medicines. So we had like herbalists and people who did Reiki and massage therapists, and we had counselors, and we even had like a free library thing. And
I have photos of the free library. Yeah, all the clothes, the food, everything. Like it was,
food. And I mean, when those guys would cry around about things not being vegan, we would just say, well, go to such and such camp and you can go find vegan food. Because there was a time there, and for Lakotas to go without meat for any period of time is pretty hard, but not so much for me, but for a lot of people. So there was a period of time there where we didn't have meat for 6 weeks in camp. So I think the vegans were really happy, but the rest of us weren't. But there was, we did this rolling caravans, and I don't know if you can imagine a line of cars extending. It was like, it would be like 700 cars.
Wow.
And we'd be going across the prairie. There would be so many cars we couldn't even see what was the end of it. And then the stupid yellow helicopter would come out. I hate yellow helicopters. And we would just show up, and they would be all freaking out, And I remember one time we did that. We took all the flags, and we drove into Bismarck with all of our cars and all the flags flying, and we just slowed everything down. And that was amazing. And so there were things that happened there that were just, who would ever thought that, one of the ocean canoes from the West Coast would come and be on the Missouri and on the Cannonball River and come into camp. But that happened. And then there was another tribe, I think they were from Montana or Idaho, that they hadn't built one of their traditional canoes in over 150 years. And so they saw the camp going on, and they built one of their traditional canoes, and they brought it to camp. They canoed into camp. So it really revitalized things in different tribes. And I mean, we had there was a tribe from Africa that came. And what was really, really amazing about this tribe from Africa, and I wish I could remember their name, but he came up to me, this this man, adult male, I think he was a chief of some kind, and he said that he had a dream a year ago that this is where he had to come. We hadn't even camped the whole year, and they came, and there was indigenous tribes that came from Thailand. I mean, I didn't know that there was indigenous tribes in Thailand, but there are. And the Ainu came from Japan, and so all these, and of course the Mongolians came, and Australia and New Zealand, the Maoris came, and all these people came, and they shared all their cultures. The Sami came, and we got every single day there was something new and exciting, and you could just walk around camp and meet all these amazing people. And there was a group of Sami that stayed there with us till the end.
Yeah.
It was, but eviction day was really hard. But it had to happen, because if it didn't happen the way it went down, we would never have shared any Michonis with the rest of the world. And to show that with the only way to face that extreme of violence is to do the absolute opposite. And how hard that is.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Easy, really hard. My daughter has epilepsy, and we were up on the front lines, and there was 3 MRAPs there, and they had 3 LRADs on top of those MRAPs, and so this is like the sound cannons, right?
Yeah.
They had 3 of them going. So a person who has epilepsy listening to sound cannons, you're going to go into a seizure, right? So she went into a seizure. The medics came and took her, and then took off. She got better. She came back. But you know how hard it is for me not to jump up on top of those MRAPs and do absolute bodily harm to those guys doing that to us, and my daughter's being carried away. But we couldn't. And even when I got shot with a rubber bullet in my arm and I was bleeding, I couldn't do anything. And even when we were shot with the water cannons, and how cold that was. Oh my God, that was cold.
Wow.
And the concussion grenades. So those concussion grenades are like canisters. They look like a little bit bigger can of pop. What those motherfuckers did is they wrapped them with electrical tape, and then they shot them at us. Now what that does is that intensifies it when it goes off.
Yeah.
This is what blew up Sylvia's arm. And it intensifies, and there's these little ball bearings inside. And they just shredded through us. It was horrible. But they loved doing it. And they would literally point their gun right over the razor wire, right at us, and fire while we were standing right there. Not more than a foot away from our heads.
Yeah, pigs are sadistic. They're attacking people with dogs as well, I saw.
Yeah, that was on Labor Day weekend. They attacked. That was on Layton Security, who did not have they didn't have a license, and neither did Tiger Swan. They never had a license to operate in North Dakota.
Yeah, and I mean, I was just going to say, and latent security, I know, has been used on the Mariner East pipeline battle. There's in court documents, just hour by hour, day by day logs of latent security watching the Gerhardts, which is a different situation, but still it's part of a larger epidemic of violence by these pipeline companies, especially
Yeah.
ETP.
And
Yeah.
Lee also hired for Rover Pipeline too.
Yep.
And so it's one of Kelsey Warren's favorite little companies. He's kind of backed off of Tiger Swan a little bit because of all the intercept stuff. But Tiger Swan decided they would go make a contract with TransCanada. Oh, yippee yay me.
And so for folks listening who maybe don't know, TransCanada is the company over the Keystone XL pipeline. And just like a really quick thing, that's moving the tar sands oil from Alberta down through the Dakotas, through Nebraska and such. Look it up.
It's going from Alberta through Canada, through South Dakota, Nebraska, and ending up in Cushing.
We have less than 5 minutes left, so just real quick, I had a question. Wouldn't it have been better if for everything if the media had came and actually covered the story early on?
It would have been awesome if they came early on.
That would have kept the police at bay more and the attacks from happening.
I don't know if it would have kept the police at bay or not. The only time that I saw the police step back was when the Hulk and Mark Ruffalo and Jesse Jackson came, and Jesse Jackson did keep them from like coming at us that night or that day when we were at treaty camp. But I wish that he would
be all over the media if they did anything with him there.
Yeah, so my wish is that he would have stayed. My wish is that he would have like hunkered down with us. My wish is like Mark Ruffalo and them, even Adam Beach and them would have gotten arrested. Now, I know Wes Studi was down to get arrested because he was awesome, but he didn't get arrested. But if these people who had influence, if these influencers had actually stayed and held ground and actually warriored up, then yeah, I think a lot of stuff could have been
avoided.
You're talking about people who care more about photo ops than actual people. Such as Jesse.
Yep.
Exactly.
And Tim asked the question if media was there. Well, I do remember very distinctly that Lawrence O'Donnell of MSNBC was at Standing Rock when the dogs were sixth on Native people, including a pregnant woman. And I thought
that was independent media that shot that.
That was democracy.
No, that was independent media, but I'm saying Lawrence O'Donnell was there at the time when that happened.
He was there because he was up on Facebook Hill and then stuff was going on. He didn't make it there in time as he didn't know what was going on. Completely out of the loop.
Go ahead.
And then the other part of that was like when CNN came, I ended up banning CNN from being in the camps because they did such a piss poor job, but they literally were looking for ways to make the camp look bad.
Yeah.
So I ended up banning CNN from coming in. So yeah, there was a couple news organizations I banned. They got the full joy effect.
Yeah, the corporate media is horrible, but I don't know. I know the cops don't want cameras on them when they're brutalizing people, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they, and I wasn't out there that very long. I made 2 trips, one in November, one in December. I totaled, I think, about 2.5 weeks in Osheti. But, when I was there was a decent amount of press, but it was amazing the way a lot of the non-native press that I would see would behave. They were rude. They didn't follow protocols. There was this sense of like, just arrogance and entitlement.
Entitlement. They would like really open your teepee flap and peek in on you.
Yeah, and then Yeah, and I mean, I myself, like, I'm very light. I look like a white person, and then I am legitimately Cherokee, but, here I come along, like, light skin, green eyes, saying I'm a Cherokee journalist, and a lot of people out there were like, yeah, right, get the hell away from us. So then, like, there was, I mean, at least just speaking for me, there were some times where it was really hard to get people to talk to me, to trust me, and so that made it difficult to give the kind of coverage that I felt like I needed to do. But yeah, for the most part, a lot of what I personally saw, being out there as press were just a lot of just arrogant, poorly behaved media, unfortunately.
Yeah.
On the non-native side.
Yeah, we got to
native
wrap.
side, they were assholes.
We got to wrap it up. So, like, anything anyone needs to say real quickly in the last maybe 30 seconds or anything?
North Dakota is 90% white, and they didn't give a fuck about Standing Rock. And they still don't.
Wow. That's true. But most of the country didn't give a damn.
No, of course.
Yeah, and the fight against Apple hasn't ended, and the fight against ETP and resource extraction and for tribal sovereignty hasn't ended. And I just want to say personally, thank you, Wado, so much to Joy for coming on here and sharing her experience of such like a really painful and difficult time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank
Love
you, Joey,
you.
and thank you, Jen.
Mini Wachoni.
Mini Wachoni.
Okay, and thank everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week.